A winter night always carries a special kind of silence, the kind that absorbs sounds, as if the snow blankets them with its icy cover. It was that kind of night, when stars pierced the ink-black sky and the trees on both sides of the narrow road stretched their frozen branches like claws, ready to strike at passing travelers. I was driving along a highway connecting two cities, late in the evening, glancing occasionally at the clock on the dashboard. 11:47 p.m. Another 3 hours to go, and I was starting to think that falling asleep at the wheel didn't seem like such a bad idea. The asphalt was covered with a thin layer of ice, and the tires squealed every time I turned the steering wheel slightly. The wind battered the windows, and the monotonous hum of the engine was oddly calming. On the sides of the road, nothing but forest, dense, ancient, black forest. The road stretched endlessly, like a corridor built to drive someone insane. When I saw something in the distance, illuminated by the beams of my headlights, it first seemed like a trick of the light. Something large and dark darted between the trees. I squinted, trying to make sense of it, but the road was empty again, and I decided it was just tree branches swaying in the wind. Still, my heart began to race. A few minutes later, I caught movement again, this time to the right. The creature, I didn't know what else to call it, ran onto the road about 50 meters ahead. It moved slowly, as if unafraid of the car or the headlights. It was enormous, like two bears stacked on top of each other. Its body was covered in thick matted fur, glistening with frost, and its eyes, its eyes glowed a ghastly yellow, like two burning embers. My throat went dry and my feet pressed the brake pedal on their own. The car obediently slowed to a stop, and I froze at the wheel, unable to breathe or look away. The creature stood still for a moment, directly in front of the hood, staring at me with those fiery eyes. Then it abruptly turned and ran back into the forest, moving with a speed that seemed impossible for something its size. I didn't know what to do. My rational mind screamed at me to leave immediately, but curiosity, or perhaps sheer madness, kept me rooted in place. An impulse flashed through my mind. Follow it. But I didn't move. Instead, I sat there, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. When I finally pulled myself together, I exhaled, slammed the gas pedal, and drove forward toward the city, where the light of the headlights would be my salvation. But I hadn't gone even a couple of kilometers when I noticed movement in the rearview mirror. It was chasing me. The car gained speed, but the creature didn't fall behind. It moved with incredible agility, as if the road posed no obstacle to it. On its paws, and they were definitely paws, massive and tipped with long claws, neither snow nor dirt lingered. I could see how it barely touched the asphalt, yet the sound of its footsteps reached me through the closed windows. A dull, rhythmic thud. "Faster, faster, damn it," I shouted to myself, pressing the pedal to the floor. The speedometer needle crept past 130, but the creature kept chasing. Its glowing eyes never disappeared from the mirror. I tried not to look at it, but my gaze kept flicking back. Those eyes seemed to bore into me. And then, suddenly, it was gone. I blinked, glanced over my shoulder, but saw nothing, just the dark road and the snowflakes dancing in the headlights. My brain scrambled to come up with a logical explanation. A bear? No, too big. Some kind of animal? No, animals don't have eyes like that. Something unreal? I didn't want to think about it, but my hands were still trembling. For about 10 minutes I drove, avoiding the mirrors to keep from seeing whatever might be there. I even turned on the radio to distract myself, but after a while the radio began to hiss. At first it was quiet, barely noticeable, and then louder. The station I was listening to vanished, replaced by a strange sound, like a low howl. It didn't sound like wind or the engine, it was an animalistic primal sound that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. I reached out to turn off the radio, but realized the howl wasn't coming from the speakers. It was coming from outside. The creature was back. I couldn't see it, but I knew it was there. It was a feeling that defied explanation, as if everything around me had tightened, grown colder. The air felt heavy, as though the forest itself was trying to ensnare me. Suddenly, something struck the car from behind. The vehicle lurched forward, and I almost lost control of the wheel. I glanced in the mirror and saw the creature's claw swipe at the trunk. Its claws tore into the metal, leaving deep grooves. The car screamed in protest, but I slammed the gas pedal to the floor. This time the speedometer needle jumped to 160, and my heart pounded in my throat. The creature didn't let up. It leaped, and I heard its paws land on the roof. The metal buckled, and a horrifying screech filled the cabin. I screamed. I had no plan, no way out, only one thought: survive. Lights appeared on the horizon. A small roadside motel. It was the only light in this kingdom of winter darkness. I didn't think I'd make it, but I still steered the car toward it, praying the creature would disappear. When I slammed on the brakes in front of the motel, the creature vanished as suddenly as it had appeared. I tumbled out of the car, trembling, and stumbled inside, slamming the door behind me. At the counter, an old man looked up at me and smirked. "Saw it, didn't you?" he asked, as if this was just another day for him. I didn't respond. I just nodded. He sighed and stood up, handing me a key. "Room 6. Stay close to the light. It doesn't like the light." That night, I didn't sleep. Outside the window, I saw only darkness, and every minute it felt like those two glowing yellow eyes would flare up again beyond the fragile walls of the motel.